turn around, Yum. Hey, don't come back.
Anytime this topic comes up, people start getting defensive before you even finish the sentence. It's like folks already know where the conversation might go and they rather shut it down than sit with it. You'll hear things like, why does everything have to be about race?
It has nothing to do with race.
Everything is not about race.
He panicked, so this isn't racially motivated,
and he killed him.
Panicked.
Or, it's not that deep. Or, people are just enjoying the culture. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. But what's really happening is, people don't want to look too close at the reasoning behind the enjoyment. Because once you start paying attention, you notice something very uncomfortable. Black culture gets treated like a public resource. Everybody feels free to take from it, remix it, profit from it, and build social clout off of it. But black people themselves don't get that same level of access, protection, or benefits in spaces that actually shape money, safety, and opportunity. So the discomfort isn't about sharing culture. It's about what sharing exposes. It exposes that the exchange isn't equal. It exposes that openness hasn't been mutual. And it forces people to confront the gap between loving black culture and respecting black people. That's the part nobody wants to sit with. Black folks are usually quick to welcome people who show genuine respect for the culture. If somebody listens to the music, learns the slang, shows love in the right way, next thing you know, people calling them solid, cool people, or joking about inviting them to the cookout.
One more thing about black people?
Yep.
Y'all's cookouts. I mean, like,
You might be invited after this.
y'all got some good food.
Hello, my YouTube people. Shoot me.
It's playful, but it's something real behind it. It shows how open our culture is. We don't just let people look from the outside. We let them participate, feel included, and feel like they belong. That openness comes from how black communities have always moved. We've leaned on each other to survive and turned that into a culture that values connection, humor, and shared space. But there is a difference between welcoming people and giving away access with no boundaries. A lot of people are welcome into black spaces culturally while still holding on to anti-black beliefs socially and politically. They can't laugh with us, copy us, dress like us, and profit off our style while still supporting systems that keep black people at the bottom. So you get this weird situation where people love black culture but don't actually care about black conditions.
They're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup, and
It's
to
the
be
most
on the
dangerous.
pill.
It's the most
Perks and Molly's
dangerous
and-
thing that's facing, our society.
Are you
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying the
it's
opioid problem's a problem.
opportunistic.
Yeah.
I got people to feed.
They want the vibe, the look, the energy, but not the responsibility of standing with black people when it's inconvenient. Being invited to the cookout becomes symbolic of being welcomed into something that we built. But the cookout is one of the few spaces that we've ever really controlled. Meanwhile, we weren't invited to their institutions, their neighborhoods, their wealth systems, or their social circles for generations. And to a large extent, we're still not. And that imbalance didn't disappear just because people learned to dance or talk like us. A lot of groups take from black culture in ways that directly benefit them, while black people rarely see the return. Music, fashion, slang, comedy, even protest language gets picked up, rebranded, and sold back to the world. And the original creators don't get the credit, ownership, or the wealth from it. You'll see non-black people build entire careers off black aesthetics, black trends, and black creativity.
A woman by the name of Black woman by the name of Jewel Ham came up with Spotify Wrapped as an intern at Spotify in 2019.
Wow.
Before then, the Wrapped on Spotify was they sent you a link and an email said, this is what you listen to the most this year. Her internship project at Spotify,
Okay.
which she came up with the word Wrapped, she has screenshots of what it looked like
Right.
And gave that, and she created this for Spotify. At the end of the internship, not only did they not hire Jewel,
of course
they took the idea and used it. And now it is the biggest thing that people talk about on Spotify. Another example of Black innovation being stole, once again.
So instead of taking her and said, wait a minute, you're brilliant.
We need to bring you in.
We need to bring you in.
Yeah.
They said, okay, see you later.
Thanks for this great idea.
Thanks for this great idea.
That's why you got to be careful of who you share your ideas and your culture with. Because again, especially Black people, they will take our culture and they will steal it. One of the things that I thought was funny was because she even tweeted the first time they started doing it. She goes, I really was like laughing. I really came up with Spotify Rap.
Wow.
She's like, not only did they not hire me, they kept my idea and ran off with it.
They get brand deals, media praise, and platforms that Black creators doing the same thing don't always get. And then when we point that out, we get told that we're jealous or gatekeeping. But that misses the entire point. The issue isn't that people enjoy the culture. The issue is that the reward goes to people that already have access and protection, while the people who created the culture get completely overlooked. Black creativity becomes raw material for other people's success. And when Black people ask for ownership or respect, suddenly the tone changes. Then it becomes, it's for everybody, or you don't own a culture. But the same people who say that still gatekeep their money, their neighborhoods, and their social power like it's sacred. So the culture is treated like open season, but the power is treated like private property. That's not accidental. That's how exploitation works. You take what you can from the group that has less leverage, and you keep what protects your own position. Historically, Black people weren't allowed into white social, economic, or political spaces. That wasn't about preference. That was law. It was enforced systems that were continuously protected over time. So while Black culture was being consumed, Black people were being blocked. White people could take from our culture while still denying us access to education, housing, and ownership. And that pattern didn't stop overnight. The legal barriers changed, but the social and economic ones adapted. Even today, Black people can be popular culturally and still isolated institutionally. Our influence is everywhere, but our ownership is rare. Our language is everywhere, but our control over platforms is extremely limited. We're visible, but not powerful in the spaces that control outcomes. And yet, Black people are still expected to keep welcoming others into our spaces with open arms. We're told to be forgiving and open-minded, even though that was never extended to us when it actually mattered.
We were riding down this block and these white people start saying, get out of here, you know, get out of my neighborhood, don't come to this neighborhood. Then they start hitting on her. Throwing rocks and everything else. Throwing rocks. Because we were in their neighborhood.
We went on a bike hike to McDonald's. We didn't mean to bother anybody.
We had a nice
parade. We saw a gathering, so we went down there to see what was happening. All right. I mean, we didn't bother anybody. We weren't looking for trouble. I never even know people around here were like that. I've never experienced anything like this in my life.
What happened to you?
Nothing happened to me, but this little boy, short boy about my size, or little short, had picked up a rock, and he was in the front of all these tall honkies. But he threw the rock. He tried to hit my sister, but he almost hit me about that much away from me.
So when Black people get tired of the one-sided openness, it's not bitterness, it's awareness. Because you start to see people are comfortable entering our culture, but uncomfortable sharing their power. Part of why Black people are open is because survival taught us to build community across differences. When you're constantly under pressure, you learn to find allies wherever you can. You learn how to read people and how to be welcoming even when you're not fully safe. There's also a real desire for some of us to be seen as human and not hostile. Me personally, I don't care about that. They're not gonna like you either way. Black people are used to being painted as aggressive. So there's pressure to show that we're not like that. We show grace, we give chances, and we include people that would never include us to begin with. But that generosity sometimes turns into self-neglect. We're so used to being excluded that when someone shows even basic respect, it feels big. And it makes it easier for people to gain access to our spaces without having to show long-term loyalty or accountability. Being cool with Black people becomes a badge that some folks wear, even while they stay silent when Black people are going through real problems. So the openness comes from a good place, but it doesn't always protect us. It's okay to be welcoming sometimes, but it's not okay to be naive about how that welcome is used. Being open doesn't mean letting people benefit from your culture while doing nothing to challenge the systems that harm you. One of the biggest confusions in this conversation is mixing up cultural access with real power. People see non-black folks in black spaces and think that means things are equal now. But being allowed to participate in culture is not the same as having control over resources, narratives, and outcomes. You can dance to our music, dress like us, and use our slang without ever having to deal with the consequences of being black in this society. You can step into the fun parts and step out of the struggle whenever you want. Meanwhile, black people don't get that option. So when people say, but we're all mixed together now, they're ignoring the part where mixing doesn't come with shared risk or shared loss. The cost of being black still falls on black people, but the benefit of black culture gets shared widely amongst everybody. And that imbalance is why this conversation matters. If people are gonna be welcome into the culture, there has to be some reflection on how they show up for the people behind it. Not just vibes, but in policy, support, and real life choices. Otherwise, it's just taking without giving back. This isn't about isolating ourselves or refusing to share anything. Black culture has always influenced the world. That's not gonna change. The question is how we move forward with more awareness and boundaries. Healthier boundaries could look like supporting black creators directly instead of people who just copy them. It could look like calling out exploitation without being guilt-tripped into silence. It could look like being slower to validate people who enjoy the culture but stay quiet about black issues. It also means black people taking ownership more seriously, building our own platforms, protecting our intellectual property, and being intentional about who gets access to our spaces and why. Black people being open, forgiving, and welcoming isn't necessarily a flaw. It comes from resilience, creativity, and community. But being open without boundaries gets taken advantage of. And people will keep taking from black culture as long as there's no expectation of giving back. They'll enjoy the flavor of black life without ever sitting with the reality of black struggle. Sharing culture does not mean accepting exploitation, and being welcoming shouldn't require ignoring history. If black people are gonna keep inviting others to the cookout, it's fair to ask why we were never invited in rooms where the real power was held, and why that still hasn't changed as much as people like to pretend that it has.